In March of 2002, on a frozen mountain in Afghanistan, an elite American mission went horribly wrong in seconds. A helicopter carrying the special operators approached a ridgeline under darkness, expecting a difficult insertion. What they flew into instead was an ambush. Heavy enemy fire erupted. An American operator was thrown from the aircraft onto the mountain. The helicopter barely escaped. And what began as a rescue attempt to bring one man home would spiral into one of the most brutal survival and recovery battles of the war. Multiple rescue attempts followed. Men volunteered to fly back into gunfire. Others climbed into what many knew might be a fatal mission. And on a frozen peak later known as Roberts Ridge, courage and catastrophe collided. This is the true story of the rescue mission that became survival hell. The mission was part of Operation Anaconda, one of the most intense early campaigns of the war in Afghanistan. Elite American forces were moving into the Shah-e-Kot Valley to target entrenched enemy fighters in brutal mountain terrain. Among those missions was an insertion involving special operations personnel aboard an MH-47 Chinook. It was dark, cold, high altitude, already dangerous. Then the helicopter took fire. Chaos exploded almost instantly. In the confusion, Petty Officer Neil Roberts fell from the aircraft onto the mountain below. Imagine that moment. 1 second aboard a helicopter, the next alone on a hostile mountaintop surrounded by enemy fighters. The aircraft, damaged and under attack, had to pull away, and suddenly the mission changed. It was no longer insertion, it was rescue. And people were about to risk everything trying to go back. Here is where Roberts Ridge became extraordinary. Most people assume once a helicopter escapes an ambush, the instinct is survival. But these men turned around, they went back. That decision alone tells you everything about the ethos behind rescue operations. A quick reaction force launched to recover Roberts, knowing enemy fighters held the high ground and were waiting. Even before wheels touched down, many understood how dangerous this had become. And then the second disaster struck. The rescue force landed directly into intense enemy fire. What followed was close combat on an exposed frozen ridge under machine gun fire, mortars, and overwhelming pressure. The rescuers themselves now needed rescuing, and the mountain had become a trap. This is where the story becomes almost unbearable, because Roberts Ridge was no longer just a recovery mission. It had become a fight for survival. Operators pinned on exposed terrain fought in freezing conditions, while enemy positions dominated the ridge. Every movement invited fire. Every attempt to maneuver carried deadly risk. And still, they kept fighting. Stories from that mountain often focus on heroism under impossible pressure, because again and again, men did things that should have been impossible, moving under fire, holding positions they should not have been able to hold, continuing the mission while wounded, trying to reach fallen teammates while under attack, and all of it unfolding at altitude, in brutal cold, in terrain already trying to kill you. That combination is what made Roberts Ridge so unforgiving. The enemy, the mountain, the cold, all at once, and still the rescue effort continued. Then came the phase that transformed the battle, air power. This is where modern rescue doctrine showed its teeth. Aircraft poured support into the fight, close air support, attack runs, coordinated fires, everything available to keep Americans on that mountain alive. And this mattered, because without air support, the ridge may have become an even larger catastrophe. But even with that support, extraction remained agonizing. The wounded had to be recovered. The survivors had to be brought off the mountain, and all of it under continuing threat. This was no longer a mission going wrong. It was men refusing to lose each other under conditions where loss seemed almost inevitable. That is why veterans still speak about Roberts Ridge differently, not as an operation, as an ordeal. Many military stories are remembered for victory. Roberts Ridge is remembered for sacrifice, because what unfolded there revealed something deeper than tactics. It revealed what people will do for each other under impossible conditions. Again and again, men moved toward danger rather than away from it. Again and again, rescue was attempted even after the mission had become deadly, and that matters because stories like this shape military memory. They become examples, lessons, legends, and perhaps no part of the story reflects that more than the fact the mission was never abandoned, even as it turned into chaos. That refusal carries weight, especially for the audience that understands what it costs. Most people think this was a battle. It was. But it was also a rescue story and a survival story and a brotherhood story. The combination is rare. One isolated man lost on a mountain, men going back for him, then rescuers themselves trapped in a fight for survival. That escalation is why the story feels almost cinematic. But the reason it endures is because it happened. And because real stories often carry weight fiction can't touch, especially when they reveal what people are capable of under pressure. Roberts Ridge should have become only a story of disaster. Instead, it became something larger, a story about sacrifice under impossible odds, about rescue attempts launched when logic argued retreat, about men who kept moving toward gunfire because someone needed to be brought home. And maybe that is why the story still resonates, because beneath the battle lies something timeless: duty, loyalty, refusal, refusal to abandon, refusal to quit, refusal to leave one of your own. Some missions are remembered because they succeeded, others because of what people became while trying. Roberts Ridge is remembered for both. But Roberts Ridge left behind a deeper question. What keeps men moving toward gunfire when survival says run? Because in our next story, the answer may come from something much smaller than courage, a piece of survival gear that quietly kept downed American pilots alive when everything else had failed. And once you understand how it worked, you'll never look at combat survival the same way again.